Taylor Swift edition. We're feeling 22.
Mm-hmm. Hey, by the way, if no one's listened to that revamp album that she just did, she re-recorded the whole thing of the Fearless album. Check that out.
Thanks.
No sponsorship, but it's solid. Go check it out.
I'm just saying, Brad, if we ever get to a point where we have a Taylor Swift sponsor for our podcast episode,
we've made it.
That would be unreal. I will say I met my neighbor today, and because they just moved in like a couple weeks ago, and I was moving my trash can back up the driveway, and I kid you not, he stopped me and he went, "What? Are you Robbie C?" And I was like,
"Whoa,
yeah, and he's like, "Dude, I play disc golf," and it was something.
That's real. I had someone recognize me at Chipotle a couple weeks ago, and I was like, "Oh, this is weird. Is this what everybody else feels like?" Dude, so
it's that when you start moving up. I'm not going to say we're disc golf. I think to a degree we can say we're disc golf famous, right? Is that that doesn't feel vain?
I'll say you for sure.
Yeah, but you just you'll never that moment of in a Chipotle, you get recognized. It's one thing if you get recognized on a disc golf course, right? Because you're inside of your context.
Yeah.
But I remember my first time it ever happened to me outside of a disc golf context was I was at a Buffalo Wild Wings at a tournament. Couldn't convince anyone to go eat with me, so I just went by myself. And then this dude walked up and just sat down at my table, and I was like, "Hey there, dude." So. It was fantastic, but y'all, it wouldn't happen if it wasn't for each of you listening and supporting what we're doing over here, over on the Foundation channel, over on the Robbie C channel. So we just, once again, I would enjoy sitting down and talking with Brad every week, no doubt. But it is much easier to set the time aside because we know that people are listening and we hopefully are trying to help a little bit along the way. What do you think, Brad?
Absolutely. Yep. Love it. And let me just say, the names that everyone came up with last week, there were several that actually Trevor was over. We were playing some Minecraft where we've got a Minecraft realm that we do. Robbie will invite you if you're a Minecraft guy.
Come on. I can be.
Yeah. But we were over and I was reading them aloud to Trevor, and there were several that we just died laughing. There was one that was Brad and his lads, although it's very simple. It caught me off guard and it just made me chuckle. So thank you all. There were some creative names in there. I loved a lot of them. Robbie and I will be going through and checking out the number 1 and number 2 and send you out some discs next week. So love it. So I guess let's do that again this week, Robbie. Let's have some fun and let's what are we doing? Distance drivers today? Control drivers?
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, distance. It's like a weird range of. I feel like you have to have a distance arm to throw the disc we're going to suggest today, and if not, it'll feel more like a control driver kind of a deal.
Yeah. Okay. Sounds good. All right. Well, let's jump into it and let Rob in.
Come on. Welcome to the show. In the bag, Rob. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Glad to be here.
Come on with it. For those of you who are listening to this show, I'm not saying it's a podcast.
You're missing out.
Yeah, it's a podcast. So it's meant to be consumed via just your ears. We've said that plenty of times. But if you're looking for a little fantasticness to add to your day, just turn on the stream real fast. Head over to YouTube. Leave a like if you want. I mean, it's fine. It helps us.
Whatever,
So that would be fine. But really the reason you're here is, Silas, when you're editing this, if you can blow up Rob's screen to be full view, just get rid of us for a second. Let's take in the beauty that is Rob's background. Rob, the posters look epic. Have you acquired them over time or...
My wife got them for me, actually. She used to work at a screen printing company and came across them that way. But been working from home, so figured I'd try and spice up the background as best I can.
Dude, that is awesome.
Looks
I'm sure
awesome.
the work caller too, people are like, oh, okay. Yeah, you got to make it look cool. So that is awesome. Well, Rob, we don't want to just get to know you for your decor. We want to get to know you as a disc golfer. Segways are my specialty over here. So we want to get to know your game a little bit. Let's talk. First off, how long have you been playing disc golf?
Started probably in 2019. I'd say I didn't really pick it up seriously in probably till 2020. So, pandemic. It was I played it a few times and it was like, oh, that was the thing that I enjoyed. And that's one thing that I can do now. So let me get into this more, and then kind of went from there.
Awesome. Yeah, I like. It's always fun meeting the pre-pandemic. Like they knew what it was pre-COVID, and for lots of us, I mean myself included, like the channel didn't exist until COVID. So I'm with you on that full dive in. Let's talk golf distance, not just like full rips, but at controlled distances. What are you thinking for backhand and forehand for your game?
Backhand would probably be, I'd say, 290, 300 tops, in that range for controlled. And then forehand is probably 220 to 230, somewhere in there.
Okay. Awesome. And for reference, we're going to be talking about this quite a bit throughout the episode, I'm sure. But Rob, you're located where?
In Denver, Colorado. So have the elevation altitude to deal with.
Fantastic.
Makes things quite a bit difficult, but on the plus side, there aren't as many trees to deal with, so more open lines.
Plus.
Yeah, I will say when Jesse came to visit me down in Alabama from Denver, he was like, dude, can we play as much woods golf as possible? Because like we just don't get it here. Like the built like seeing a disc work through the fairway of a tree's like, yeah, that blows my mind. But also, I'm sure your scenes look a lot more beautiful with the mountains than just our non-wooded courses where it's like, oh, this is just a public park. Bummer.
Oh, yeah. The views are great, especially if you go up into the mountain courses, then it's, something else.
Dude, come on with it. Well, so that's distance. We want to get to know your putting game as well. So if we lined you up, stack of putters, 10 putters at 15 feet, 10 putters at 25 feet, and 10 putters at 40 feet, how many are you making from each station?
So from 15, I'd probably say 9 out of 10. Should be 10 out of 10, but there's always that one squirrely one. And then 25, I'd say about 7 out of 10. And then 40 feet, maybe around 3 out of 10 or so.
Okay. Are you a step putt guy or just real confident with that, like the range putt?
Just pretty confident with the range putt. I'd say the putting is probably the strongest part of my game, just from going out in the backyard and practicing. It's much easier than trying to find a field and throw. At least I can do it more often. So
that's the truth. And it's a lot less walking traditionally.
Yeah.
So I hear that. Awesome. Well, you even answered our final question of what would you say is the biggest strength. So with all that said, let's go ahead and dive into the bag, Brad, if you're ready. And let's look at some discs, shall we?
Yeah. Let's start with putters today, Robbie. Let's go there.
Come on. So we're going to start with, what do you putt with in your bag?
So I putt with Judges.
Okay. What plastic do you putt with?
The prime blend.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Okay. Yeah. I feel like it's almost kind of rare to find a prime plastic putter. Most of the people I know like putt with like the classic blends and stuff like that.
Yeah, I definitely prefer the stiffer putter for putting. I have a classic soft one that I'll use sometimes more for like really far putts on like hills if I wanted to hopefully not roll away as well. But yeah, generally I like the stiffer plastic, the prime.
That's fair.
I always like to ask too, like, because I think putters is just such a feel thing, right? Like what drew you to the Judge versus like any other putter that you tried?
I mean, I haven't tried a ton of putters. I've tried like Lunas, P2s, some of those. I generally like the feel of the bead, and it's like not overly deep. I mean, it is a deeper putter. That's why I don't really throw it, but I think it's just like the right amount of depth and then the bead on it as well. Definitely helps out, I feel, for me at least.
Mm-hmm. No, it's great. I always like to ask, Robbie,
Yeah, I agree. Putters are super preferential. Even like I've made a move. I'm trying out a putter right now, and I went from like micro bead to full on bead, and it was weird for like the first week. But now that I have the bead, it's like I don't know how I putted without you, buddy. So can totally relate on that, Rob. So you have one of the most cult following is not the right word. That makes it sound bad. You have one of the most unique discs in disc golf in your bag. You've got the Berg. What does the Berg do for you?
So that probably like changed my approach game for me. My approach game is one of the weakest points in my game. I tend to like to just point and shoot for a lot of my throws. And the Berg is, definitely helpful with that. I can just aim straight at the basket, throw it. No, it's not gonna really go anywhere else. It helps with my speed control as well. Like if I throw it too hard, it's not really going that far past the basket. Like, it's just really helped be a lot more consistent with that. I don't know what else to say, but it's been great.
Totally fair. Brad, have you thrown a Berg yet? Are you bagging one?
No, I'm not. Armadillo gang. That's all I got to say. Next question.
Oh, my Atlanta. All right, we're going to move past that real fast. So we've got a little gyro on the top end of it. You've got a proxy and then 2 envies. Tell me about the difference between the envies, and then how does the proxy separate itself?
So I was trying to fill them out into like an understable slot, straight slot, and more stable slot. So like the 2 envies, one is like a electron, just like a normal one, and then the other one's like a glow envy, so it's a bit more on the stable side. And then same with the proxy, it's also an electron one. So I feel like the proxy has been pretty good for like I can hyzer flip it pretty straight or do like a slight turnover with it. And the envy, the electron one will fly pretty similar, but it will fight out at the end. Like if you try and do an anhyzer on it. And then, the glow one is just a bit more stable, but less stable than like a zone, for instance.
That's exactly where my glow envy fits in my bag too. It's like, all right, I don't like to backhand my zone, but I need like kind of a zone-esque shot, and maybe a little straighter. And then I'm going glow envy every time, or eclipse envy. I'm sorry. So I'm glad to hear that's giving you the kind of the same flight.
Yeah.
And one thing I really like about the Eclipse Envy in that slot is that I feel like if you put the Eclipse Envy on hyzer, it's like you're rarely going to see that thing flip up to flat unless you just murder it and like throw it super hard. Yeah. And at that point, you sacrifice control on it anyways. So might as well
it follows the line. It really follows the line you give it on hyzer, which is another reason I like it so much. And it to me, I feel like with the Eclipse Envy, I can actually put some heat on it and it's not going to turn over on me too. It'll just kind of, like you said, it'll go straight, but it doesn't even think about turning over on me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's the same for me. The Eclipse was the first one that I had. And so then I was like, well, I'll try and, bag this electron one to cover the same slot with the same mold type of deal. And then maybe that might cycle out the proxy if it gets beaten enough. I'm not really sure yet.
Yeah. And I think I've talked about it before when we talk about the envies versus the proxy. The hand feel of the envy and the proxy are so close to me that like that subconscious confidence is still somewhat there. If I ever try to replace a proxy for someone, I replace it with an electron soft envy. Which is gonna like, if you had the electron soft envy, it probably could even push that soft judge out of your bag for those like layup sort of like longer putt type deals, especially once it gets beat in. And you can float it on in there. So an electron soft envy is one of the straightest flying discs that I've ever thrown in my life. Talk about like easy flip up stuff. And if you love the envy already, I highly suggest trying out an electron soft. But still encourage. I think you have the right mentality and the right approach to that. Like you said, that overstable, straight, understable spread with those 3 discs. So want to commend you on that. And the Berg is unique and helpful. So fantastic job on your putters. The bridge between the 2, you have 1 zone in your bag. Mid-ranges, we'll kind of love the zone in with the mid-ranges because you only have 4 mids in your bag. Talk to me about the difference between the reactor and the buzz.
So the reactor is it's a bit more stable. It has a bit more of a finish than the Buzz. The main idea, at least for it in my bag, was to be more of a headwind disc. Normally I'd just throw the Buzz, but especially spring out here in Colorado, it gets super windy. And so the reactor was kind of that little bit of extra stability was hopefully to help give me a similar flight as the Buzz, but more into those headwinds where I might not trust the Buzz on it.
Okay. And what plastics are your reactor and Buzz in?
Buzz is in Z, and then the reactor is also in Clips.
Okay. Awesome. Okay. That makes a lot of sense. So, so when you say significantly more stable, I'd imagine even like at that elevation, is it like it's not as stable as a zone, but it's not, is it almost like a longer Eclipse Envy for you, the reactor?
Generally, yeah. I'd say it's pretty straight, but then a pretty noticeable finish at the end. And if you put it on hyzer, it's going to hold that the entire way.
Okay. Is there a sentimental attachment to the Buzz? Because that's a disc that I always have to be careful when I talk about it in people's bags.
I wouldn't say it's sentimental, but it was one of the first discs that I had in the bag, so it's been around probably the longest.
Okay.
But I'm not really attached to any of the mid ranges. I'm still trying to work them out. They always feel weird in my hand, where it's like power grip doesn't really feel right, but if I fan grip them, they're not really going much farther than a putter. So I'd usually would just throw a putter instead. So they're just in a weird spot for me right now where I'm like, I want to like them, but I'm like, I don't know what to do with them really.
Been there. I just have recently got to the point where I've kind of fallen in love with my mid-range section of my bag, but it takes a long time. I still fan grip all of them, except my Bobcat. I will throw a power grip on that disc. I think it's because it's a little bit more shallow. I don't know. Definitely feel the sentiment there. And Robbie, I don't know if I said this on the podcast yet. I did take my very first disc, my Z Buzz, out of my bag. It is no longer in my bag. I actually gave it to a family friend of mine. Shout out Harper. She's 7, and she was like disc golf. It's pink. She liked it. I was like, you know what? It'll be better off with you. You take it. So it's gone. So
wow, that's guys. Discraft leaving Brad's bag. Take us back to episode 1 and say that was going to happen. Never would have seen it coming. It's
a less than 50% Discraft now.
That is wild. Wild. So let's talk about your Meteor real fast, Rob. It seems to be one of the more understable discs that you have in your bag. What kind of flights do you get out of the Meteor, especially at elevation?
It generally will go mostly straight with a slight turn. I wouldn't say it's definitely doesn't feel like a -3 turn out of it. If I force it over like on an Anheuser, it'll definitely like kind of hold it, but yeah, it's definitely a bit more stable than the numbers would suggest, at least up here.
Yeah. So if you step up to a hole, let's say 225, 230, is that about mid-range territory for you? Or is that still putter range?
It's kind of the in between. 220, I'd probably would throw a putter. Like I feel a bit more comfortable just throwing that. Like I said, the mid ranges have been a little weird for me. If it was like 240, 250, then probably usually going with the Buzz for that. Unless it's kind of windy or the shot calls for it. But
yeah, okay. So like 240 hole pushes off to the right for a right-handed player. Are you going like forced over Meteor, or are you stepping up and maybe throwing like because that sounds like max distance forehand from talking at the beginning of the episode. So are you going max distance forehand on that, or are you just kind of playing for the par?
I'd probably go forehand, just because I feel like the miss for me on forehand gives me a better chance at getting up and down than trying the the touchy turnover.
Okay.
Cause I either will turn it over too much and it just kind of, burns out, or I don't put enough on it. It stalls out to the left. And then I'm like way left of the basket. So I'm like, with the forehand, my miss is either like saw it off or turn it over. But like either way, they're at least going somewhat right to the basket.
That's fair. Okay. Yeah. So I asked that because I would be willing to bet, Brad, especially for most of our listeners that come on in that range, that 240, like slightly off for our righties on the right side, for our lefties on the left side. I'd be willing to bet that is one of the toughest shots to consistently hit, like that shot shape, whether you're hitting it with a forehand or that turnover backhand, undoubtedly.
Yeah, because it's kind of like the end of my putter range. It's like I'm still not super confident with my mid-range game yet, and then also that's about comfortable range for the forehand, but yet there's a lot that can go wrong with the forehand, especially with form at the beginning. So yeah, it's a weird distance for sure.
Huh. It's inspiring me. We may be doing some like videos and a drill about that. If
Okay.
People listening on the internet don't beat me to it. So I appreciate y'all. Appreciate y'all being vulnerable enough to talk about that for sure. So with the lack of trust on the mid ranges, Rob, I totally get that, man. I think that is absolutely, like, I mean, we hear that. If you don't think that we believe in that, yeah, you have not been listening to Brad's Chronicles in his game. So you're not alone in that for sure. Moving to the fairway drivers, the disc that I think might be a little more helpful that I'm seeing in your bag is that diamond chilling all the way up there. What's the diamond do? I see a little bit of a smile on your face when it comes to the diamond.
The diamond it's a strange relationship with it. Like it just feels so very touchy for me. Like, and part of it, I think I tend to have a more of a natural Anheuser release, which I'm working on, pulling down in the follow through and all that. But with the diamond, it's like if I hit it perfect, I can throw it on hyzer, it'll flip, it'll turn, and then it'll finish out at the end, and it's like a gorgeous flight. But any other time, if I take any amount off of it, it doesn't flip up all the way and it just hyzers out. If I put too much on it or don't get the angle right, then it's turning into a roller like halfway down. So it's like I have trouble trusting it. But I haven't taken it out yet because it's like the few times when I get it to just fly just perfect, it's so satisfying.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's exactly. I bagged 2 diamonds for a while, and that's exactly why I took them out of my bag. It's like the risk was not worth the few rewards that you got out of it. I replaced that slot with the Apex Jackalope, so I don't know if you've ever had a chance to try that out, but it's just flippy enough that you can make it turn over where you want it, but it's not so flippy that it's going. If you mess up and release a little too on Anheuser, it's not going to burn over on you.
Yeah, I have not had a chance to throw that yet. That's kind of the one spot in my bag where I'm like, my discs are kind of all over the place because I'm like trying to find that one that will just carry that turn just perfectly without burning over into a roller. So I might have to try that out.
Yeah, and I will say the beauty of the Jackalope is Brad has the Apex, but it also comes in the Eternal as well, so you can get some stability difference just in terms of those, like that one disc. I did a video recently and we had a Jackalope, and in our initial trial run, we tried the Eternal, and then we ended up with an Apex in the actual video. So totally big fan of that. So with you saying your discs are kind of all over the place, does that mean that Crave, the River, and the Insanity are also like similar, trying to figure out that slot, or are they all kind of locked in?
Yeah, so the Crave is kind of me experimenting with if I wanted to just replace that with, like, instead of my mid-ranges, just go to like 6-speed fairways like the Crave. And, the idea was to see if it could replace my buzz in that aspect. But it's a bit more stable, a bit more like finish at the end. Whereas the buzz just kind of lands nice and soft with no skip. So I'm not sure if it quite has a place in the bag because of that. And then the river is kind of that's if I'm throwing a turnover, I'm usually going to the river. That's the one that's been the most consistent for me in that shot. The Insanity was meant to try and take over that slot as well, because it's allegedly has a bit more turn, but it feels to be more of a straight flyer for me. It doesn't, like, I can start the Anheuser, but it'll fight out of it a little too early for me to be that consistent turnover disc.
Okay. What plastic is your Insanity in?
It's in Cosmic Neutron, but it's a little bit lighter weight as well. It's like in the 160s, somewhere around that.
This might be an odd question. Do you know what color the rim is on your Insanity?
It's white, I believe.
Okay. I have heard the red rim Insanities on the Cosmic Neutrons to be like crazy overstable.
Really?
So it's weird. Colors are like, sometimes runs, the colors seem like they matter. Other times they don't. Like if you're talking the 2022 Calvin Tour Series Destroyers, the color matters drastically on those. But I've heard on some of the gyro, the Insanity being the mold I've heard the most about, the color matters on the rim. So I'm sure you can do a little research.
Yeah, I know they had the Fission Insanity released recently, and I wasn't sure if that was would be the extra bit of turn that I needed. But, since I was also throwing a lighter weight Cosmic Neutron, I wasn't sure if I'd see that much of a difference or not.
That's a fair point. And if you're seeing that out of your river already, I think there's a world that like you just lean into the river, and because they have orbit rivers that are out now. I don't know if you've seen some of those. They look amazing. So that could add more, like you can add more stability options. And as you beat in that river, I am almost 100% confident it will replace the diamond wholeheartedly, because that 7 glide is like absolutely a thing on the river.
Yeah, it's noticeable.
Okay, so let's take a step forward. It sounds like there we have the Crave is dicey just because does it replace the mid ranges? Does it not? And I'm fine with that. The Insanity doesn't sound like we love it. Doesn't sound like we hate it. Am I catching the right vibes so far?
Yeah, I mean, like, they're great discs. It's just like they don't have a clear shot in my mind that they're like serving.
Yeah.
And so, it just makes me like when am I going to actually throw this disc, I guess.
Yeah. Dude, Rob, you were speaking wisdom for sure of like, if you're doubting a disc and it doesn't like, hey, when I throw this disc, this is what happens for it. That is not a good disc to have in your bag. Like, because rarely in a game of golf, unless you're playing like a crazy casual round and you just literally don't care about score at all, I have almost never seen someone step up and be like, yeah, this is where I experiment right here in the middle of my round. Like, no, that's not golf. So I totally respect that. We move forward. So like, if you're looking at your chart, all of these discs are in a line, and then there's these two outliers in fairways off to the left on the chart on the stability side. We have the Volt and the FD3. FD3 can go ahead and assume just meat hook.
Yeah, that's also primarily probably I throw that mostly on forehands.
Okay.
But occasional backhand, but very rarely. I'd probably throw the Volt more on a backhand, unless I needed to just like crazy stability. But
okay.
yeah.
So is it I'm trying to think through, has FD3 has not been remade with the Discmania remakes, has it?
So they just recently released a remake with the European Open. They did a Metal Flake FD3 release. Yeah. And that's the second one that I got in the bag, because the first one was an Innova one, and I saw that they were releasing that, and I was like, I need to get this to have, because if I lose this other one, like, I don't have a backup. They fly pretty similar. I'd say the Metal Flake one is a bit more stable, but it's also like brand new versus the other one I've had for a little while.
Okay. So yeah, I think the FT3 is a fantastic mold. Love it. I bagged an FT3 for a long time. And then when I saw the split was happening, I was like, all right, cool. I'm away. I'm moving away. So I'm glad to see that I would be willing to bet the FT3 by the end of 2023 will be readily available, just like the FD and the PD and stuff like that. Has to be coming back around. If they're making MD1s with Simon,
Oh
right.
yeah. I had a spare Raptor in the bag that was a backup to that FD3 for a while, and then once they released that other version of the FD3, I took that one out to consolidate. But yeah, that was definitely a concern of mine. I was like, they don't make this. Like, what am I gonna do? So
Yeah. Okay. Well, what's the Volt do for you?
So the Volt, it's a fission Volt, so it's also a little bit lighter weight. And I'd say that one's pretty straight, neutral with a good fade at the end. It's not as meat hooky as like the FD3, but I don't have to. I know it won't flip over like the River might. So it's kind of that straight shooter. If the basket's off to the left a little bit, I can just kind of trust it. Even if I put a little bit of Anheuser on it, it'll flex back out of it and end up going pretty straight for me.
Okay, awesome. Well, let's move from there to your distance drivers. And then I want to have Brad kind of talk about because I don't know, Brad, if you're catching the vibe, like how he just described that Vision Volt almost sounds like we have found the perfect longer form of it with what you tried out today. So do you like, if I say that as a little teaser, Rob, we found a longer Volt for you. Does that sound like a shot that you already have between your Photon and your Wave?
I mean, that would probably be what I would use the Wave for. I'd say the Photon is more, it's similar with like the Reactor and the Buzz. I'm only throwing it into headwinds, or if I want to make sure I get left, like I don't want to turn it over at all, then I'm throwing the Photon. But for the most part, it's usually the Wave. It's a lighter weight Wave as well. It goes pretty straight for me. I can flex it a little bit, but it's if I'm putting it on a Anheuser line, it will definitely come out of it like halfway through or so.
Okay, that is fascinating to me because with it with it being that lighter weight Wave, I would assume like the more you play with it, but I guess that's the elevation probably having some effect on it to a degree. Yeah. Okay. Cool. Well, Brad, we had Brad try out some discs because looking at the chart, there's definitely like a little bit of that gap. And it sounds like this disc could live between your Wave and your Volt, but also might have more reliability than the Photon instead of like just having to throw it in a headwind kind of a deal. So that's my thought. Brad, tell us what you got.
All right. So today I threw one of my favorite discs, the Vulture. And then against its Innova counterpart, the Thunderbird. So bonus disc today was another Thunderbird, but I was very curious. It's the Halo Thunderbird. Wow, that looks really, really crazy. But I wanted to see what its stability was like because out of any of the plastic types, I've really noticed the stability difference in Innova's plastic types between like Champ, Star, and Halo. So I was really curious. I have a Vulture. Actually, I have 3 Vultures in my bag. I have a Z Vulture that I love, but it's kind of beat into perfection right now. And I know on this podcast, we kind of like, hey, use those discs, but be prepared to lose them and know something you can grab off the shelf that's kind of like that. So that's why I wanted to kind of throw a couple types of Thunderbirds because I haven't thrown them before, just to kind of see if, hey, is this Vulture I have very unique, or can I get something off the shelf like it? So Z plastic for the Thunderbird. I always do feel first. I mean, I'm very familiar with Z. It feels comfortable to me. I've thrown a lot of it, right? Champ plastic. I always like Champ plastic initially a little bit more just because it's like just a little bit more give than the Z plastic, which I tend to like because I feel like I can kind of dig into it a little bit. But it does feel a little more slick, just slightly. It's just a very, very slight difference in those plastics. This Halo plastic, though, which is a Henna Bloom Rose Tour Series, it's a little bit more gummy, and I really like it. It feels very good. I actually did some field work with Jason again this week, and I threw that Halo Thunderbird for the first time. I'm like, Jason, I can't like this more than my Vulture. I can't. So that's how good it felt like initially in my hand. Um, so let's talk about like distance overall. I mean, honestly, there's a lot of overlap in these two discs. They're very similar. I know Hunter says all the time that the Vulture does not need to be a 10 speed. It's really a 9 speed. If that's the case, they're almost identical discs. And I will say, throwing them today, they're very similar with like slight differences. And it's really just going to depend. For you, those slight differences are probably going to matter a lot more because of your elevation. And I think I automatically know which one to recommend for you, probably, Robbie. But flat backhand, Vultures, they were going to. It's hard to say. I know how far I can throw my Vulture normally. I've got a broken toe. It was a little hard to throw today, I'll be honest. And there's a lot of wind. So, I was still hitting 300 with the Vulture and the Thunderbird. If I really gave it max that I could give it today, I can throw a little bit farther, but I'll say safe distance was 300 for both both Thunderbirds and the Vulture. Relatively straight flight. That's what I like about the Thunderbird. It really goes pretty laser beam straight for me, but then it just really crashes at the end and gives me a nice flare skip. That's my favorite part about this disc. And I hadn't thrown the Thunderbird before, so I was curious. And the Champ Thunderbird definitely was a touch more stable, and it was crashing a little sooner than the Vulture and the Flight. Still got the flare skip that I like. It just was a touch more stable. Just off the shelf. Now the Halo Thunderbird, definitely a little less stable, just off the shelf. When I throw this, it reminds me exactly of my beat-in Z Vulture. Like, it's just slightly understable. It just rips out of my hand laser beam straight. It tricks you like it's going to flip, but it doesn't. It goes straight. And then still comes back at the end with a reliable fade. So, again, all of them are going to like that 280, 300 range, hitting and give me some flare skip. The Champ Thunderbird was going a little less, giving me a little less distance because it was a little more stable and did want to get to the ground just a little sooner. Heiser release, we can probably guess what happened there. That's Spike Heiser territory. If you want to throw that disc, if I have to get around a tree, I'm throwing a Vulture like that just to get it up and around very quickly. And then Anheuser backhand, I can get like the most smooth like S line out of my Vulture if I need to, so it definitely wasn't as smooth with a brand new Z Vulture. I can give it that flex line. It's never going to roll ever on backhand. I don't know if I can even make it do that. But it'll come back. It doesn't get back super quick, but it'll give you that full nice S and hit the ground. Same thing with the Champ Thunderbird. It definitely did that S a little quicker and got back. Definitely not going to roll that over. The Halo Thunderbird did this long sweeping S, and I love it. And I'm talking it up, and I love that disc. But because it reminds me of my other Vulture that I just lean on a lot when I play. So it gives you that nice smooth. Again, it's not going to roll over on you, but it will let you flip it and turn it over a tiny bit before it comes back. So that's why I like that disc. Again, we're getting that 280, 300 foot range. I'm not going to push 300 really with this disc. It's just a little too stable for me. Forehand. I don't typically throw my Vulture on forehand. I will if I really need to get some skip on the ground. If I really need to play that Heiser angle on forehand, I'll use a Vulture. If I got to get out low underneath a tree or something, I need to flare skip, I'll use that. But really a little too stable for me because I do have more of a Heiser release on my forehand, so they both kind of want to crash on me. The Halo Thunderbird didn't really give me any leeway either. It still was stable enough that it just kind of crashed back for me. About 240 was the distance I was getting on those forehands. again, kind of gave me, if I was releasing on my natural release, which was a hyzer angle, it was kind of crashing back. If I tried to like chop it a little bit, it would kind of flip up, but again, it's not going to roll over on you. So that was kind of my experience. I guess overall lessons, I mean, it kind of stands true for me, at least. The Champ plastic is definitely more stable, even just a touch more than other discs. Makes sense. I haven't thrown a lot of Halo plastic from Innova. It does feel really good. It does have a little less stability than the Champ plastic. And again, Vulture, I just love the feel of the disc so much. And it's just, I think it's a lot of it's like subconscious confidence, Robbie, because I throw it a lot, right? If I had to give a winner, it's hard because they're really not that different, the two molds, as far as like what they do for me. I did love the Halo Thunderbird because it did give me that flight that I'm accustomed to with my precious child, which is my Z Vulture that's beat into perfection. Where personally I think this helps you in your bag is maybe this Halo Thunderbird, Rob, just because it is less stable. So I think it's going to be a little bit more usable for your elevation. And what's nice about like these discs that I love, it's like usable overstability. Like it definitely wants to stay straight for a long time. They all have 5 glides. So they're not like a Raptor that wants to get back to the ground super quick. But it will push straight for a long time with a reliable finish. So like I got to throw in a headwind today, which was really nice. I don't get to throw in a headwind a lot. And I felt confident still throwing these discs because I know what they're going to do. They have enough stability that they're not going to flip over on me, so I can use them in the wind. But I also can use that overstability just in everyday play with not a bunch of wind. And I know it's going to have that reliable finish at the end. It's going to give me some flare skip. And I think especially for you, this Halo Thunderbird is going to be very usable for your circumstance and fill that kind of gap that I think you're looking for, which is you're kind of stacking like, hey, here's my Eclipse Envy. This is what this throws like. Here's my Reactor and Buzz. Here's my Volt. And then maybe now the Thunderbird for you to give you some more distance, but also give you some reliable fade at the end. So that's what I'm thinking, Robbie. I think Halo Thunderbird may be the fit for Rob this week.
Wow. Can we just take a minute, Rob, as Team ROB over here, to appreciate the fact that when I give everyone a little behind the scenes how the disc recommendation goes, because I feel like you should know this if you're a future guest or even Rob as you're here. Usually how it goes is like, we'll look at the bag, we'll have the guest, and then I'll tell Brad, hey, here's like 4 discs that I think could fill this slot. And then he goes through, picks out of those 4 discs. We have the comparisons. And I knew we wanted to recommend the Vulture today. But I said, hey, you love your Vulture. What do you think is going to be a fair competition? Because it'd be like me stepping out and being like, all right, I'm going to recommend the Pig and something else. That other thing is at a severe disadvantage coming into that competition. So the fact, Rob, that he has a Vulture to recommend to you and he literally is recommending the Thunderbird, to me, that's unreal. Have you thrown a Thunderbird before, Rob?
I have not. I have thrown some Innova, none of their Halo plastic, just some of their Champion stuff. And one point I was going to say with that is I've always struggled with their Champion plastic in the winter months out here. It just with how stiff and slick it is, it gets very hard to grip in the colder months over here. Mm-hmm. But I've heard good things about the Halo plastic. Just haven't had a chance to try it yet.
Dude, so it sounds like it would be a perfect fit. So my question would be, Rob, if we get this Halo Thunderbird to you, would you be willing to come back on and let us know how it goes?
Yeah, I'd love to give it a shot, try it out, and let you know.
Dude, come on. Well, the challenge goes to Brad of if something bad happens to his precious child, does he beat in another Vulture, or does he just jump into is he a Halo Thundy guy now?
I don't even like saying this, but I think I'm gonna grab one and put in my bag anyway.
Ooh.
and just start throwing both and really deciding, it really made me. I hate it. I feel like I'm like giving up on my kid, but I really liked it. I really feel like, I don't know. And this is like an unspoken, like, I don't know why. Like, I was an all discraft guy and I automatically thought in my head, like, Innova was trash. I don't know why. That's just like a brand thing that they've like bred into me. I don't know why, but I've really not tried a lot of Innova plastic, and that's my mistake. And that's a great disc. This Halo Thunderbird, I think you're really going to enjoy it, and I'm going to bag one too, and just really, I'll see what I really like. I don't know. It's very close for me,
Dude. Well, Rob, if you're down, I'm already looking forward to that recap episode for the both of you to be like, hey, we both bagged a Halo Thunderbird for a little bit. Here's what we have. Here's what we found. Because I feel like all episode, your two games have been just like side by side with each other of similar vibes. So, Rob, we would be honored to have you back if you'd be willing to come on.
Yeah, I'd love to. Thanks for having me.
Dude, absolutely. Well, thank you for sure. And we look forward to hanging out with you on a future episode, man.
Yep.
All right.
See you, Rob.
See ya. Wow. Oh, this, I just want to go ahead. Next week on my channel, I'm dropping an In the Bag, and I have added a Discraft disc to my bag, and I totally did not expect to be adding a Discraft disc in that slot, but I threw it and audibly gasped when it came out of my hand. I was like, that is the disc I've been looking for. So the fact, Brad, that we are waving at each other as we pass, that's crazy to me.
Yeah, I know. I didn't expect it either. I went out with an open mind, right? I wasn't going to just like pigeonhole a disc, right? But I was like, this is my Vulture. Nothing's touching it. And hey, it just goes to show you don't know until you throw something. So don't have a preconceived notion until you throw a disc. That's my mistake. That's how I'm trying to grow here. And I've missed a lot of good plastic because I've had such a closed mindset. I'll just be honest.
Hey, that's okay. It's all about, the podcast doing its job. We're equipping people with the right discs, and Brad, you and I are some of those people. We gotta be willing to open up our minds to it too. So, but the only way that we find more plastic, one of the ways we find more plastic is thanks to the people over at foundationdisc.com. So what's new in the warehouse this week?
We're still going through a bunch of our Discraft inventory. So what you'll see going up on the site, I think I said this last week. If not, there's a new tab on our website called Recently Restocked. So you're going to be able to see if you scroll down on our main page, and it'll show you everything that's been recently restocked. So it's just something customers have requested. So check out there for everything new coming on the site. Mindbender MD1 comes out tomorrow, which is Wednesday. We're recording this on Tuesday. Hopefully, I ordered quite a bit. Hopefully, everyone gets one that they on Wednesday. If so, maybe there's a few lingering. Check it out on the website. There may be a few. Nordic Phenom, the PD they released. It's coming out for us on Wednesday as well. Maybe some of those will be left. I doubt it. Those are pretty hot ticket items. The Era comes out in its new composite plastic this week. I threw that in the field today too when I was working this, Robbie, and I love the Era. I bagged two. It's my farthest flying disc. The composite plastic's more like a Z Champ style plastic, but it's definitely more overstable than the forged plastic, which is more like a star / ESP plastic. So still flies great, flies like an Era, but has a nice overstable finish. So those are releasing this week. We've got Innova factory store stuff coming out that we've not had. Like we have some, we have Vikings and T-Rexes we have not had in a long time. Those are in there. Any Seaspiracy fans or anything like that, I have some Sea Shepherd Mako 3s that are going to be in the store. They're pretty cool. My son Eli's favorite disc, the Blizzard T-Devil, I got some of those in. We haven't had those in a while. Sneaky overstable disc. So check out all that. We've got a bunch of that. Castoplast restock is coming in. We have some Bergs. They may not be there long, all you Berganites. Make sure you check those out. There's going to be some for like 4 seconds. So make sure you look at those as they're releasing on Friday as well.
Dude, Sounds like it is a great time to be over at foundationdisc.com, especially on that recently restocked page. So, y'all check it out. And just want to say thank you once again to Foundation for hosting this. And
Absolutely.
Brad, thanks for being the best co-host ever.
Hey, I feel the same about you. Thank you. Giveaway this week. If you can finish, the first person in the comments to finish this phrase, I am Archer, blank. There's a phrase. It's a 90s movie.
Ooh,
I'll give you that.
Game
Whoever
time.
completes that will get one of my favorite, the Vulture. We'll send that to you. All right?
game time.
I am Archer. Finish the sentence.
I love it.
All
I love it. Well, y'all, we appreciate you. Thank you for listening. Thank you for tuning in. And remember, as always, if it's good,
Keep it in the bag. We'll see you for episode 23. Have a good week.